Let's bring in CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He's also a former national security advisor under the first Trump administration. So, General, just your thoughts on that last question that I asked Nancy about a president of the United States criticizing a predecessor, again, in a part of the world where, as you know, it's been quite difficult for the United States when it comes to diplomacy and strategy, not just under President Biden, under the first Trump administration, under President Obama, and before that, under President Bush. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts as to a president criticizing a political opponent while abroad.
Well, Vlad, hey, that's just, of course, not surprising. I don't think to anybody who knows President Trump. I mean, he doesn't have a filter, right, between what he thinks and what he says. Sometimes that's positive, sometimes that's negative. I don't think it's good to disparage another American leader when you're abroad. But what makes Trump effective sometimes is that he says these things that are arresting, and he's so transparent that I think it throws off some of the people with whom he's having these conversations, the leaders of other countries, and that can be to his advantage, because he is without artifice. He's pretty transparent, and oftentimes when leaders have these kind of exchanges, there's an ulterior motive, and they're trying to be persuasive by maybe hiding their true intentions. With Trump, that's not the case, and so of course it can be offensive. It can break protocol. It can be concerning to us, Vlad, but sometimes it's effective for him.
Let me ask you about this. The administration is touting this $142 billion arms package signed with Saudi Arabia, calling it the largest defense sales agreement in history. I thought it was sort of, the juxtaposition of Air Force One coming into Saudi Arabia, General, and having those fighter jets accompanying the Air Force One in. Those jets are probably jets that we paid for. But how is this boosting military defense in the Middle East?
Well, President Trump would always tell me, hey, I'm all about generals, reciprocity, reciprocal. And so what he wants is he wants a strong economic relationship and economic benefit to the United States if we provide, for example, defensive capabilities to Qatar and our forward presence, right, of our joint military force in Qatar. We're the big dog on Qatar's front porch. Qatar's a very tiny but very wealthy country that has difficult relations and has had difficult relations with Saudi Arabia and with Iran, and some territorial disputes with Iran. So having us there provides a tremendous benefit to Qatar. The president, the way he thinks, right? He thinks he's a real estate guy from his background. He thinks, hey, I want something for that. We should have a beneficial economic relationship. And so what you're seeing are these kind of big deals, commercial deals, a lot of military deals. And it is, of course, a benefit to the United States. It's U.S. jobs. Qatar pays for everything, right? They've got the money to do it. It's not foreign military assistance. This is foreign military sales. And what it does for our defense as well are these sales drive the unit cost down of a lot of these weapon systems and aircraft. And of course, it does provide us with a degree of influence, in the region. So anyway, I'm all for it, Vlad, if it's part of an integrated approach to the region that advances our overall interests there, which are many, right? The Middle East is an arena of great power competition with China and Russia. And also, we know that, hey, what happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East, right? And especially the problem of jihadist terrorism, the horrible violence that we've seen in the region, and refugee crises associated with it, and of course, Iran's effort to extend hegemonic influence in the region, keep the Arab world perpetually weak and enmeshed in conflict and to threaten Israel. There are a lot of really crazy dynamics going on in the Middle East these days. It's anything but static. I have to see President Trump and the United States engaged in the region at this critical moment.
No, an excellent point there. And actually, General, I misspoke. I meant to say that the Saudis bought those planes from us, and that's why this defense agreement is so instrumental. That we probably built the planes, and they are huge buyers of American, as you say, American weapons, American aircraft, American military aircraft. The other interesting note about what's been happening in Saudi Arabia, General, is that they've been hosting, they have been the hosting site for many peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. And President Trump says that Putin wants him there. I want to play for you and for our viewers what he had to say while sitting down with the Emir of Qatar about reaching a deal very soon. Listen to this.
It will bring peace not only here, but I know you're very much involved in helping us in other regions, like what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, etc. And I think we're having some pretty good news coming out of there today and maybe tomorrow and maybe Friday, frankly.
So could the presence of the President of the United States help these talks move along? I know that the President has tweeted at Vladimir Putin. I guess the question is, how seriously does Vladimir... We know that Volodymyr Zelensky takes President Trump very seriously. We saw that after that Oval Office meeting. But how seriously does Vladimir Putin take President Trump, his presence, his pressing, whether through social media or through diplomatic means, to try and end this really brutal and horrific war?
Well, hey, I think Putin wants President Trump there now because he's kind of on the back foot. You know, he thought that he could get away with, signing up for, a small ceasefire, but continuing his onslaught against Ukraine, as he has in recent weeks and months, completely disingenuous about any kind of intention to end kind of the murderous attacks on Ukraine. He's trying to offload responsibility for the war, saying that we have to address these primary drivers of the conflict and fundamental issues. And then what he thought he could do is kind of put off any kind of a discussion with Zelensky by, instead of offering a ceasefire, say, oh, let's have a talk. Well, Zelensky took him up on it, which was smart, to keep the pressure on Putin. Putin wants to alleviate that pressure. And what he wants from President Trump is President Trump's support for an agreement that is unacceptable to Zelensky. Then he can isolate Zelensky from U.S. support. I don't think he's going to get it, but that's what he's trying hard for, Vlad. And what he'll do with President Trump is, he'll try to flatter him. He'll try to highlight their mutual sense of aggrievement. Oh, you've been treated so badly, President Trump, and so have I too. And then he'll hold out the prospect for big deals. Oh, I can help you with Iran. Hey, let's reduce nuclear weapons, and then he'll portray anybody else as weak and him as strong. Like he's trying to create this myth, that Ukraine is profoundly weak and he's in a strong position. Hey, Vlad, he's in a very weak position. And as oil prices drop, he's in a weaker position. And so, I think President Trump is not going to fall for it. Putin's going to push it like Kim Jong-un tried to push it with President Trump during Trump 1 to get a deal that would have been cut against our interests. I think President Trump's going to see through that. Vladimir Putin's going to be disappointed. And I think what you'll see is the Trump administration kind of back in to an effective approach to Putin, which is imposing costs on him and stopping him by convincing him that he can't win in Ukraine. And I think until he's convinced of that, we're not going to get like an end to this war, because Putin won't stop until he is stopped, Vlad.
Fascinating. Really good insight there, as always, from Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. Sir, as always, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, you too, Vlad. Thanks.